Hello everyone, I'm the Weather Dude, welcome back, and today we are going over the potential for several days of severe weather and maybe even a potential severe weather outbreak. So this will be a very interesting video, so stay tuned and enjoy. Before we get started with the video though, if you guys have not already, please consider subscribing. It really does help my channel grow. I want to thank you guys so much for 2,000 subscribers. We've flown past, and hopefully we can hit our next goal of 3,000 subscribers soon. And also, to help this video reach more people, please consider liking and sharing it as well. And let's get into the video now. Now, before we get started with this video, now I have congratulated him, but my good friend Jones Harn J has hit 1,000 subs. I thought I'd celebrate, formally on a video. So if you're watching Jones Harn J, good job, my friend. Of course, if you want to go subscribe to him, his link will always be in the description. And just want to say good congratulations. But as I said before, we're going to be talking about the severe weather threat today, and it's going to be a big severe weather threat. All right, we got today. This threat slightly goes down Thursday, but still, any severe weather threat should be taken seriously. And then it's going to start up again for several days: Friday, Saturday, Sunday. All right. So what we're looking at here is the thunderstorm outlook. So this is kind of like late this evening in through midnight. So like 8 to 12 p.m. around that time. You can see the thunderstorm outlook is about 10%, right? There are some thunderstorms out there right now, but it's that overnight into very early morning where we see more thunderstorms break out from eastern Kansas through northern Missouri, as well as through western Illinois. So we're going to start off with some storm prediction center maps and then go into some more weather modeling, some more of the weather models for the potential threat for Friday, Saturday, Sunday, all right? So here's the threat for today right now, all right? And you can see we have two areas of slight risk, which is, slight doesn't sound like much, but it is a very high risk, in fact, all right? So we have a slight risk of severe weather for eastern Kansas, as well as western Missouri, and then even central northern Iowa, as well as southeastern Minnesota. Not too far, if not actually, well, maybe, yeah, not too far away from Minneapolis, western Wisconsin. And in this area, there is a mesoscale discussion on a tornado threat. So we're going to be talking about that upcoming very, very soon. Here it is right here for you. So this is a tornado watch. It includes Minneapolis. I would say it's right on Minneapolis, but definitely southeastern suburbs of Minneapolis. Just outside of Rochester, Waterloo, Iowa. Not so long ago, these places were getting snow, right? And it's pretty freaky how we're getting tornadoes now. But you can see there is a line of storms here, and we of course know that those line of storms does tend to promote those damaging wind threats. And you can clearly see, right, somewhere we see like a low rotation, right? All right, because you have the low pressure here, and we got the precipitation rotating this way, and then you got your southerly flow like this, and that's causing and you got the winds coming out of this direction, and that's how you're getting the kind of like bow echo, if you will, in that line that's coming across. And damaging winds with these lines, even if you don't get tornadoes, you can pretty much guarantee damaging winds with these, all right? I know, or even some rain as well, some flooding rain. Hail isn't always a threat, but hail is certainly a threat for right now. So you can see in the hazards right here, right, we have a moderate likelihood of tornadoes, all right? Now, it is a low probability of EF2 plus tornadoes, but severe wind is going to be a moderate threat. Severe hail will be a moderate threat. I assume they are referring to in this zone right here, in this tornado watch zone. The threat of winds of 65 knots plus, with 65 knots, that's about, that is pretty much 75, 76 mile-an-hour winds, which is like hurricane force winds. There is a low probability of that and a low probability of 2-inch hail, but just know that even an inch of hail is still very dangerous. So there's your tornado watch for northern Iowa, northern central Iowa, southeastern Minnesota, and western Wisconsin, right? So again, here's your mesoscale discussion, right, in this region right here, kind of like where the tornado watch is. And of course, if we read down here, you can see risk for isolated damaging wind gusts and a tornado or two remain possible in this tornado watch region, all right? So there will still definitely be a tornado threat over the next few hours. So definitely want to find that lowest spot in your home, of course, whether that's the basement, whether that's the first floor, away from any ulterior or outward facing walls and windows. All right, so now we're going to kind of talk about the threat over the next few days, because the threat does not stop today. All right, so here we have the threat on Thursday. Okay, now it does drop to a marginal threat. All right, now, but that does not mean at all that it does. There's still a threat for damaging winds, tornadoes. It's just, how do I put it? It's not as big of a threat, right? It's not as like widespread. All right, but still, if you get under a line or a supercell, it's still going to be just as dangerous. All right, so this includes Tulsa, Oklahoma, St. Louis, Springfield, Broken Arrow, Oklahoma, and Fayetteville, Arkansas. This dark green region here, that's still 6.5 million people, guys, right? Like, that's definitely nothing to joke about. I mean, a lot more people than that, or just about, if not more, are in the severe weather threat for today, right? In the marginal or slight risk. Here, so I just pulled up real quick. So look, we have 6.5 million people today under a slight risk, and an additional 7.6 million under the marginal risk. So that's about 14 million people, just about, if not more than that, right? Maybe close to 15. So at 15 million people, all right? So it does drop to 6 million, 6.5 million, but that's still a lot of people. Of course, you got St. Louis, Tulsa's a pretty big metro area, so that could be a reason why. But still, even outside of that, the lighter shaded green is more a rainy and like some thunder and lightning, which is still dangerous in this light green zone. Maybe a strong gust of wind, but no, like we're not seeing as great of a threat of severe weather in these light green areas. But Indianapolis, Cincinnati, Columbus, definitely some major cities are still in there as well. Tornado threats will be very low. Wind will definitely be a threat, all right? So wind in that 5% region right there, as well as hail. Again, 6.6 million people are under the gun for hail, as well as 5.6 million people under the threat for damaging winds. All right, now we got to look towards Friday, all right, and then even beyond that, because so here's Friday. We got the slight risk breaking out from northern Texas, western-ish Oklahoma, right? Thankfully, it's not in as populated areas. Like we're not seeing Minneapolis being affected. We're not seeing St. Louis or Tulsa. All right, but still, right? One person being severely affected by severe weather is still sad to hear. We still got how many people is that actually? That's like about 5 million people still under the gun for severe weather on Friday. And it's in the plains, southern plains, and of course, more specifically, OKC is definitely in the slight risk, which is OKC is like the one populated place I really see in there. More Oklahoma as well. And in your marginal region, we got Tulsa yet again, Wichita, Lubbock, Amarillo, and Norman, Oklahoma. All right. Now we have to look for day 4. All right. So this is Saturday now, right? 12.5 million people now. Primarily that's because of the Dallas metro, which is like if you took this same zone, right? Like how big the zone is really doesn't really matter all that much. I mean, it does, but if you take the same zone, right? Same size, same square mileage, but put it over the 95 quarter, your population is going to go up by a lot. Like we're talking about tens of millions, if not more than that. All right, so, but still, 12.5 million people under the gun for severe weather on Saturday. Dallas, Fort Worth, OKC, Tulsa, Arlington, the list goes on here. Day 5, the threat shifts further towards the east, right? 10.5 million people still, maybe closer to 11 or 11.5 million if you include Dallas in there. Dallas is like right on the line. All right, but still, Tulsa, Oklahoma yet again. So it's like Tulsa's like every single day. All right, and this is Sunday, and then Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, we're either too far out or the threat is just too low to be able to tell. All right, so now we're going to look at our weather models, right? Now we're going to focus more on the southern plains, and we're going to talk about the threat that we have for Friday, Saturday, Sunday, because the chance for severe weather outbreaks are still present, right? And I'm going to show you why. So here we have the GFS model. Now, again, this will be a more Friday event, Friday, Saturday, Sunday event, right? So you can see some thunderstorms now on the simulated radar. On some of the models that I show you or some of the maps I show you, the radar may not look so impressive, and you can't really predict, especially like when you talk about severe weather. It's hard to predict the exact radar. Matter of fact, I can pretty much guarantee you that this exact radar will not play out like it is, right? It's giving you a general idea, if you will. But you can see the rain and the thunderstorms are there. You got your low pressure sitting right there. All right, and that's going to help to draw some moisture from the Gulf of Mexico. You're going to have a jet stream coming in like this. You're going to have cold air coming in like this, right? Your classic severe weather setup. And there you have it, right? You see thunderstorms, and they just kind of sit and spin around. In Denver, by the way, I'm pretty sure this is the same system. It's going to bring like feet of snow to Denver, right? And most of their snow, if not a good chunk of their snow, does come in March. So no surprise for Denver, but good for the ski resorts. All right, now this is late Saturday, and you can see, look at the bow echo that we see developing, right? that inward push, right? That kind of like backward C motion, that's where you really get your damaging winds, all right? This is where the real threat lies, right? The damaging winds, the tornadoes, really any form of severe weather is really bad, all right? Because you're going to have the winding up low right here, which is going to draw on the flow like this, and that wind flow coming into the line is going to kind of give it that backward C motion. So that's kind of like how it works, right? And then the line moves its way through, and even by Sunday morning, usually severe weather, it can last overnight. It's very dangerous overnight. Usually in the morning, early mid-morning, and even into the late morning, it usually does taper off. But look, this is late morning into early afternoon. It's still live as ever, right? Look at, because of that low pressure, it's hoping to generate some more wind, right? The wind will be like the biggest threat with this system by far, just because of how you can see how wound up the low is, right? You got a lot of heavy rain as well, right? So this is what we're going to be watching for. Even in the Monday or Sunday night into Monday, it will be heading towards the Midwest. So the Cape, right? This is how much heat can be fed into the system. Now, I will say, for the severe weather that I've tracked, the Cape is lower than I would, normally expect it to be. But thunderstorms can still be because the Cape really gives you that instability that really helps form those tornadoes and the hail, right? The wind and the rain can still be very significant, right? Regardless. So you can see some of the Cape values. The blue, now if you look on the scale, blue is relatively low, right? Between 1 and 2,000, right? I've seen Cape values up here before. Even in some minor to moderate severe weather events, right? But in the blue is where you have your slightly higher Cape as opposed to the gray. But Cape, as I said, is generally low according to the GFS model, right? And you see the Cape, we see the area of blue kind of bounce around here in western Texas. That's the trend I've seen with the models, as you'll see coming up as well, right? And you can see, and then, but look at the Cape, how it kind of starts to fizzle into a line, right? You can see, because that's how you can tell that once that line of storms blow through, right, there is no instability or heat behind them, right? It's just pure, we're getting that, slightly cooler flow coming in, a cooler, drier flow. It doesn't always happen, but in this particular case, it might, all right? But then it'll rebound back to normal pretty quickly from there. So we have the shear. Now, the shear is something that really does worry me, because when you get the shear coming in, you can definitely get those tornadoes coming in. And I'll show you a map that's kind of related to this, where I can show you the turning of the winds with height, because that really gets those tornadoes going. But the shear, if you get strong winds in the atmosphere, and those winds can translate themselves to the surface, right? Let's say you got 100 knots of wind shear, right? Definitely seen it happen before. Let's say 90 or 100 knots, right? That's a lot of wind, and it can translate itself to the surface. Now, when it gets to the surface, it may not be that same 90, 100 knot strength, but it can still be 40, 50, 60 plus, and that can still cause a lot of damage. All right, so look at the shear here. This is surface through 500 millibars. The shear really comes in on late Saturday into Sunday when that line is coming through. You can see the shear really intense in the red, moderate in the purple, but really intense in that red shading. All right, and you can see, look at the shear come through. That jet's going to come through, right? You got the winding up low. You have a lot of shear here, and that's really going to raise a damaging wind threat in this red zone. All right, now, the shear, having shear, usually there is a lot of shear, right, when you get these severe weather systems, but it's important that if the shear, if the strongest wind shear comes after the thunderstorms are over, then it is kind of pointless, right? Your severe weather threat's kind of lowered. But if the shear comes at a perfect timing and the wind shear arrives as the thunderstorms, as the precipitation arrives, that can make it really bad, all right? Especially because it's going to raise the wind threat, it's going to raise the tornado threat, even hail as well. All right, so now here's the map I was just talking about, right? Here we can see the turning of the winds with height. Now the red is 10M, which basically means at the surface, all right? And I'll show you let me pull up a good example. Let me see. Yeah, this is a good example right here. So this is about overnight Saturday or overnight Friday into Saturday, all right? The red is your winds at the surface, and you can see that the winds are generally coming out of a south-southeast direction, sort of, right? And then the blue is the winds at 5,000 feet. The black is winds at, I believe that is 10,000 feet, but we're not worried about 500 millibars. Or that's not, actually, that might be 18,000 feet, but we're focusing on the red and the blue, right? The surface wind and the 5,000 feet winds, because look at the 5,000 feet winds, how they sort of come out of this direction. And that turning of the winds with height is what really causes those tornadoes, all right? And you get a good instability coming in there right at the same time, some instability in here, and that really gets the thunderstorms going. That's what I'm kind of worried about. Now, as you can see, by the time the line comes through, our surface winds are coming out of this direction, and so are the 5,000 feet winds. So the tornado threat kind of subsides after the thunderstorms are over, right? Which is what it makes sense, right? So that's what we're talking about here. We're going to go through a couple other models as well, but let's look at the supercell composite first, right? The chances of those supercells, and you can see in that blue shading is where you have those increased chances of some, not the highest, right, but increased chances of some potential supercells that could come through and cause some pretty intense damage. All right, so we're moving on to the European model now. Now, the European model sadly does not have as many severe weather maps, if you will, as the GFS and the NAM. Spoiler alert, I'm showing the NAM after this. Sorry about that. But European model, we still can see the precip map first, right? And as you can see, look at the thunderstorms, and look at this, how it almost forms like a hook. Now, like I said, I can almost guarantee that the radar will not play out exactly like this, but if it's giving us an idea, if this looks right, we almost see like a little hook echo, right? So there's your potential tornado threat right there. You can see kind of like this time it's a front-facing C. It's not a backward C this time. But anywhere there's yellow and orange colors, I mean, dark green is like your moderate heavy rain. Your yellow and orange is your really heavy rain and your potential for thunderstorms. And you can see the potential is definitely there, but look at what happens here, right? Look at the line. It does appear as a broken line at first, with more intense up here, less down here, and then more intense back here, where we have our surface low. The thunderstorms a bit more intense towards the Mexico border, excuse me. So, but don't let that fool you, because the line will definitely organize itself. That low moves farther south, and that helps feed into the line, to feed its energy into the line more. And you can see once that low moves south, the line gets going. The line's still pretty strong. The dark green and the yellow is really where you see the more intense precipitation. All right, so that's what we're talking about. Definitely very. It is exciting, but at the same time, you know, it's scary for the people that it affects, because this is Tornado Alley, even towards the east at 60 Alley, right? It's where we see a lot of tornadoes this time of year, and severe season just getting itself ramped up. All right, now the only severe weather map that, as you can see, like if I go here, like you can see bulk shear. That's the only map that's there. All right, so for the European model, we have our bulk wind shear map, similar to what we saw with the GFS map. All right, so let's take a look at that. So the shear for Friday and Saturday, it's not as high. It's moderate, it's there, but it's not as high, right? Sunday, we tend to have, that's why I tend to notice if you have like a good chunk of severe weather, right? Like you got a good day or two of severe weather, usually on that last day of your severe weather is where we see the most intense wind shear, because on your last day of seeing the severe weather, in a multi-day event, right? On the last day of seeing your severe weather, that's when the front and the jet stream come through, right? We see the low swing through, right? All these forces that are going to drive more wind are going to be moving through on the last day of your severe weather event. So that's why in this red zone on Sunday, which is the last day of severe weather, as you saw by the Storm Prediction Center maps, right? This is where the wind shear could be most intense. This is when the wind threat could be most intense, especially you saw by the simulated radar, how it could form like a backward C, that line, kind of like a bow echo. So that's what we're talking about. All right, last model here, last few maps, we have the NAM model. Now, the NAM model doesn't really put much on the simulated radar right now, but they are forming a line, but they're not putting much on the simulated radar. But they definitely do still say something interesting on the severe weather maps, right? You can see the line is still there, but they're not going crazy with the colors yet. And, you know, NAM is typically not a conservative model. They like to go really crazy with their colors usually, especially when it comes to snow. They like to go crazy with their radar, but looks like they're being more suppressed, right? They're not, and that's okay, right? But you can see the severe weather maps will prove just the opposite of why the NAM is going bonkers here, right? Look at the shear, right? You can even see hints of gold in there, which is like over 100 knots of shear. All right, so there will be lots of wind shear. And notice, like I said, the last day of severe weather, here we are. On Sunday, the shear is on its way through Texas, through western Oklahoma, right? And this is as far as we go. Look at this. So look at some of this wind shear, 110 knots in Oklahoma right there, all right? And even up in Kansas as well, you can see some hints of gold. So if we get that kind of, like, you can still see 60, 70 knot winds at the surface, guaranteed, right? With that kind of wind shear. So that's where we definitely have to be looking out for it. The Cape, the instability, it's there on Thursday, but Thursday severe weather will be more towards the north and east. It's Friday, Saturday, and Sunday where we have to focus back towards this region once again for severe weather, right? So let's go through Friday now. Let's check that out. You can see some blues, right? Kind of like similar to the GFS. We saw some blues, but look at this. Towards New Mexico, we start to see some more orangish color break out, right? It's not widespread, right? This will definitely be more localized, right? when you're under the slight chances of severe weather by the Climate Prediction Center, or Storm Prediction Center, excuse me, the severe weather does tend to be more isolated, right? It's like when you get an enhanced and moderate and high, that's when it starts to become more numerous, right? But still, any severe weather threat is still very dangerous. Don't take it any, lighter, if you will. Now, here's a supercell composite, right? And this kind of like does worry me a little bit. Look at the supercell composite numbers, right? Between 10 and 20. All right, and that's on a scale that goes up to 50. So really, if you think about that, that's like a good, if you want to put it on a percentage base, right? 20 to 40% plus chance of seeing damaging supercells that can produce wind, hail, tornadoes, and rain, right? So, or flooding, I should say, instead of course, it's going to be rain. All right, so here is the significant tornado parameter to wrap up as our final map here. And look at the chance for significant tornadoes, right? Now, this scale goes up, I believe it's 10, I'm pretty sure, right? And we got the, according to the NAM, we're going up to 3, which is like a 30% plus chance of seeing damaging tornadoes, significant tornadoes, as the map says. So this will definitely be a very interesting severe weather event to watch. We got several days to watch it, so I will hopefully be trying my best to provide updates for you guys. So stay tuned. I am the Weather Dude, signing off. Until next time, I will catch you guys in the next video.